use the modern case to look back at how the various elements of that particular operation had come about. Many of the operations I witnessed while filming were memorable, but the one I found particularly striking was performed by cardiac surgeon Stephen Westerby at the John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford. The patient was 34-year-old Sophie Clark. Sophie had a couple of serious cardiovascular problems which she'd had since birth. The first was a defect in a heart valve, the second an aortic aneurysm. An aneurysm is a weakening and swelling of a blood vessel, rather like a faulty tyre. As with a tyre, the risk is that under pressure it will burst. If the problem lies in the aorta, the main artery of the body, this would almost certainly mean death. The operation to correct both these two defects was extremely complex. First, Sophie was anaesthetised, a development pioneered in the mid-19th century by William Morton, James Simpson, and others. See Chapter 1. Then she was connected to a heart-lung machine, the first of which was built and tested by John Gibbon in 1953. See Chapter 2. Next, her heart was stopped, using potassium chloride, a chemical more commonly used for making fertilizer. Then her body was cooled from a normal body temperature of 37 degrees Celsius to a decidedly chilly 16 degrees Celsius. This was to slow her metabolism and cut her brain's oxygen demands during the operation. It's an approach that was first suggested by Bill Bigelow, who was in turn inspired by research he had been doing into the hibernating habits of groundhogs. See Chapter 2. Finally, all her blood was drained. As Steve put it, heart surgeons are basically plumbers. You've got to get the blood out of the way just as you have to switch off the water before you change the pipes. At this point, Sophie looked like something from the morgue. She was chilly to the touch, grey in the face, had no heartbeat, and the EEG technician could detect no signs of brain activity. She was as close to death as anyone I have ever seen. Steve, under some pressure to get the operation done in as short a time as possible, did a magnificent job correcting her problems. He replaced her faulty heart valve with an artificial one, repositioned and reattached blood vessels using techniques first developed by Alexis Carroll, see Chapter 3, then warmed her up, started her heart, sewed her back up, and the operation was done. She has since made a full recovery. Going first. Not all surgery ends quite so happily. The thing about pioneering surgery is that it can, and often does, go wrong. The price of going first is that it is often those who come later who benefit from the lessons learnt. The history of surgery is littered with stories of patients who died while undergoing experimental procedures. In many cases, the sort of procedures attempted would not pass a modern ethical committee. To be fair, the problem does not always lie with the surgical team. Take the case of Clint Hallam, the New Zealander who became the first man to have a successful hand transplant. The operation took place in France in September 1998, and I remember vividly being impressed and slightly disturbed when I first saw this reported all over the news. I did not realize at the time that I would become involved and obsessed with Clint's story as it unfolded, like a Greek tragedy. In 1998, most people had got used to the idea of swapping body parts, as long as those parts were internal. Heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, all have long been eminently respectable organs to transplant, the main issues with them being around limited supply. Who should get the organ when it becomes available? Is it right to pay for organs? Questions like these were the main preoccupation. Suddenly we were confronted by something very different. Not only was the transplanted organ, the hand, quite obviously on display, but in some ways the operation itself was seen as cosmetic. You can't live without a heart or lungs, and your quality of life without kidneys is poor. Surely, however, you can function perfectly well without a hand. The cost of keeping a transplanted organ is high. The drugs that prevent rejection will take something like 10 years off your life. Many people felt that performing a hand transplant was morally indefensible. Those who argued the counter case, that a patient should have the right to choose whether 30 years with 2 biological hands was preferable to 40 years with 1, were not helped by what happened next.